Hello, today's lesson we are going to look at secondary research. So how to conduct secondary research in product design. Secondary research is research you have carried out but did not discover yourself. It has been collected by someone else and you have used it to inform your project and improve your own understanding. Types of secondary research that you may carry out may be looking on the internet, looking through books, journals, watching videos and listening to podcasts, and analysing data and statistics. When you're looking at secondary research, you need to be aware of fake news. Be aware of fake news when looking at your secondary research. Use a filtering method, such as the C.R.A.P analysis, to ensure validity of your research findings. The C.R.A.P analysis model is an acronym for currency, reliability, author, and purpose or point of view. The currency is important when looking at secondary research. You need to know when the information was written or published. Things change over time, so we need to make sure we are looking at the dates of articles and secondary research. The more recent the information was written, published, edited or updated, then the more credible the information may be. However, you need to be aware of context. If you are researching World War II, then older texts can still be considered credible. However, if you are researching laws, you want the most recent version of those laws. Otherwise, your information is going to be outdated. You need to make sure the information is reliable. If a secondary source is reliable, you need to consider what kind of information is being presented. Is the content purely opinion-based, or is it well balanced with a mixture of opinions from different people and other sources such as data and statistics? Does the creator provide references to the secondary sources used? And if they do, are these references also from reliable sources? Have they used secondary sources or data to validate their findings? Is the source biased? Is the source from a credible website? These are all factors to consider when deciding if the information you're looking at is reliable. You need to consider the author. You must always check the author of a piece of secondary research to ensure its credibility. There is so much information online and anyone can post anything that they want, so make sure that you check who they are. You want your research to be from an author who knows about what they're writing. For example, they have studied the subject area. They work in that subject area. An example of this is if you want to find out about space, then an article from NASA would be a good source. However, having a source from somebody on Twitter who has no knowledge or has not studied anything to do with NASA or space, then they may not know the most up-to-date information on this. You also need to consider the purpose of the piece of writing. The purpose of why an article or secondary source is written is important. You need to look out for, is the information trying to sell you something? For example, a persuasive piece of writing. Is the information biased, one-sided? Does the information have adverts? This could mean they've got a vested interest. Is the information purely negative or overly positive? You should be looking for informative writing. Writing that has got information from both viewpoints, has got secondary sources, is written by an author who knows what they're talking about, doesn't have any vested interest, or isn't trying to persuade you that it's a good idea. Top tips when doing secondary research for product design. I highly recommend you plan your research. I also recommend that you use a range of different sources, so a mixture of internet, books, videos, podcasts, journals, articles. I also recommend that you have a key question to find out when you're doing your research. So before you start, sit down and say, I am going to research today the function of my product. I am going to research the sustainability factors of my product. I'm going to research the laws around products in the UK for children. So have a key question to start with. This will keep your research focused and on track. I also recommend using lots of images and visuals. As designers, we're constantly looking for visuals of how we can apply something to our product to make it better for our end user or our target market. So use lots of images, mood boards, lifestyle boards, sketches and drawings. We're then using keywords and annotations in your research. Now, the research process, it takes time, so be patient. You can't do it all in one day. When you discover something new, it may give you a new idea. This is fine. Reflect on what you have found out. Otherwise, you may forget that key information that you have spent a long time researching when it comes to your design ideas. I would make notes and record your next steps. And also, when you find things out or when you see something, take a photograph, draw, make notes and sketch your ideas as they come to you. This will help you further along the line. Here are some page ideas. I would recommend having a page for each area. So having a page on aesthetics. What style will your product have? What colours? What shapes or themes? Are there any designers who make similar products that you could use as inspiration? Photos of buildings, nature, shapes, patterns. Go outside, take photographs, wander around your home, take photographs of products, observing people using products and interacting with them. Mood boards and lifestyle boards with annotations are really good ways for product designers to be able to collate all of their ideas into one space. For your customer, so for example, you know your end user is a male aged 25 to 30, so your secondary research on the customer is going to be finding out what they like, where do they shop, socialise, what music do they listen to, what are their hobbies and interests. You could record the findings via a client profile, observation, or a pen portrait of your target market. When looking at cost, you need to focus on products that are within a certain price range. How much are people willing to spend on an item that's going to solve the problem you're looking at? You could create a mood board on cost, split into low, middle and high range. You could also do a spreadsheet analysing costs. You could also use primary research on what products are on the market and the price range of your primary research has identified that they're willing to pay for a product that does similar things. When you're looking at the environment, consider which of the 6 R's of sustainability you're going to include in your product. So, are you going to include reduce, reuse, recycle, refuse, repair? For example, you want your product to have environmentally friendly packaging, so your environment research is going to look at different types of packaging that could be made sustainable. Where could you source this from and what is it made from? Also, the benefits of using environmentally friendly packaging. When you're looking at size, it will depend on your product idea. Now this is where you want to look at anthropometric data. The measurements of the human body. What size is the user? You may want to look at the area size and space. How much area will your product need to fill? Where will the product go? How big will it be? You can also look at weight. How heavy should your product be? Does a person need to lift it? Does it need to go on a shelf? So these are all different things that you can use in your secondary research. You could also use primary research for some of these and actually test the sizes yourself. So for example, if you're going to have your product on a shelf, you may have a shelf in your home which you put on different weights of objects to see how heavy your object could be to be able to go onto a shelf without the shelf breaking. When you're looking at safety, you might want to look at any safety guidelines that you need to consider, any industry standards. Also, how are you going to protect your own ideas and your design? So you may want to look at copyright. How will you make sure the target market is safe when using the product? These are all things that you need to consider when looking at safety. The function. So what is the primary function of your idea? What do you need to consider? For example, how is that drawer going to open? How does the user interact with the product? What existing products are there that do these things? You might want to look on Pinterest or YouTube for examples of creative solutions. How could your product work? Now, you might not be able to find a product that functions in the way that you're thinking for your idea. However, there may be other products that have one of the functions of your product. You could then find the pros and cons of this and then put them together and find the best way for your product to function. Materials. So what materials do you want your product to be made from? What are the properties of these materials? What are the pros and cons of using these materials? Where can you buy the materials from? Are the materials you're looking at sustainable? And is this important to your design brief? How durable are the materials? Are there any alternative materials that you could use? Also, what processes could be used with this material? Manufacture. So when you're looking at manufacturing, look back over your materials processes booklet. You've already chosen your materials from your research. So now we need to look at what processes we could use to actually make a product from these materials. For example, if you're going to use the laser cutter, but you've decided that you want to use PVC, this is not going to be possible because you can't cut PVC on a laser cutter. So then you may need to either reconsider your manufacturing process or your material choice. You might want to think of what tests you might want to do when manufacturing. What skills do you need to gain to be able to do this? So looking on YouTube and watching how-to videos is a really good way of doing this. Places to get you started. You might want to look on Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, online shops such as Amazon or ONS for your statistics and data. These are really good websites to help get you started with your secondary research. Some key points. You really need to synthesize your research. Only take what you need. Don't include it if it has no impact on your ideas, thoughts, or your project. And remember, it's okay to change your mind if you discover something new. This is the whole point of research, discovering things that you didn't know before. Make sure that the research you're using is credible. Use the C.R.A.P analysis model to help you filter your research. Find creative ways of displaying your research. Don't just rely on copying and pasting and then applying a reference. Think, could you present it as a mood board or a poster? Or could you create a sketch or drawings of the research? And always reference work that is not your own, even if you have paraphrased the research. Use the Harvard referencing tool to make sure that you have referenced and cited all secondary work correctly. And once you have done all this, you should now have a really good understanding of secondary research and what to include in your secondary research and where to start. Remember, everybody's project is going to be different. Not everybody's secondary research is going to be exactly the same because you're all looking at different projects, different problems, different target markets, and you're all going to have a completely different outcome. These are just some tips to get you started. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with.